Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Bumper show lined up for you today, and the dream lineup. McCubs is back from holiday. McCubs, how are you on this Thursday?
Yeah, good mate, good. Refreshed. I went away to Spain last week. Now I'm back, raring to go. All good. How are you?
Happy days. I'm good, thank you. Yeah, no, I'm very good. I'm pumped for this episode. It could be a slightly controversial one. Henry, are you ready for a bit of controversy? Are you ready for a bit of stirring the pot?
Oh, yeah. I just realised that McCubs and I never ask you how you are when you introduce us. So I think we should
No worries. My feelings are irrelevant.
We'll try and rectify that. But yeah, I'm excited. I think we've got a bit of a different style of show coming up for everyone today. Obviously, there's going to be lots of talking points. Get in the comments below if you disagree with anything we say. So yeah, I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, it should be good. Basically, we are going to rank Europe's top 5 leagues. Now, people have asked us to do this for years, but we thought now is a pretty good time because although it's been a hot topic since the dawn of time, it's really come into the fore on Twitter recently as well. Everyone debating where each league stands. So we've come up with some criteria to determine the best league. So we're going to do competitiveness, quality, which is obviously pretty subjective, managerial talent, and player quality. Now, it's important to note that the UEFA coefficient rankings have just changed. So we are doing Europe's top 5 leagues, and that now re-includes Liga at the expense of the Primeira Liga, Portugal's league. They unfortunately dropped out after France had some great Europa League results, but it is very tight between those two for 5th. But as it stands, UEFA's coefficient ranking is England, Spain, Italy, Germany, and then France, which I think we're probably going to disagree with throughout this episode. Guys, we're going to kick off with the competitiveness. Henry, I'm going to start with you. Where do you go in terms of competitiveness? What's your number one?
Well, from a historical perspective, if we break it down, the last 10 years there have been 5 different winners of the Premier League. 3 in Spain, 3 in France, 2 in Italy, and 2 in Germany. Off the bat, I would say the most competitive league at the moment is maybe Serie A. Certainly judging on this season, that's the way I look at it at the moment. Obviously the Premier League as well, but I just get this feeling that Liverpool, Manchester City and Chelsea are just so far ahead of the other teams in my opinion, whereas in Serie A it really looks like to be such an open horse race at the moment. We saw Juventus just scrape past Spezia last night in what had been labelled a 6-point relegation match by Allegri, which is a bit concerning. Nice. But yeah, just to look at a bit more numbers, in the last 5 seasons, the Premier League has had 5 different clubs that finished in the top 4. That's Chelsea, Spurs, City, Liverpool and United. And then if we go over to Italy, which is kind of what I was saying, it's had 7. Juventus, Roma, Napoli, Atalanta, Inter Milan, Lazio and Milan. Germany, I know this is actually a bit of a surprise to see. Germany has actually had 8 with Bayern, Dortmund, Leipzig, Hoffenheim, Schalke, Leverkusen, Gladbach and Wolfsburg. They recently sort of re-emerged last season. But obviously, when it comes to the top 2 positions, the top position is always tend to be dominated by either Bayern Munich or Borussia Dortmund. I really feel like competitiveness is what is going to hold back the Bundesliga in our game today. I don't know what you guys think. But yeah, obviously like Germany's competitive at the lower levels, but I think when you're looking at people are interested in the title race, that's the most important fundamental thing, and I think the Bundesliga really struggles in this regard because Bayern Munich are just almost untouchable at the top. We had those extraordinary comments recently that came out from the sporting director where he basically said if Dortmund don't sort of behave, he'll steal one of their other players and try and ruin them for another generation. I just couldn't quite believe, forgive me, I can't quite say his name off the top of my tongue, but yeah, competitiveness is going to be quite an interesting one here. Spain is arguably the least competitive in a historical perspective. No team has broken into the top 3 other than Barca, Real and Atleti since 2011-2012 when Atleti finished 5th with Valencia 3rd and Malaga 4th. I don't think that much is going to change again this season really when you look at it. Maybe Sevilla pinching a 3rd spot, but that's about it. So yeah, from a competitive perspective, I'd probably say at the moment it's Serie A, but the Premier League sort of level of competitiveness is a whole different point in terms of just how good the top 3 teams are. It's more of a dogfight in Italy between, some very respectable sides, but this year it's shaping up to be very exciting, and that's what I'm quite looking forward to.
Yeah, I'd agree with you with Serie A. I think I watched some of their games recently, and there are just 7 or 8 teams, but maybe 7 or so, maybe the big dogs, they're all at pretty similar level now, and obviously Juve are having a really difficult start to the season as well. But you'd expect them to finish in the top 7 at least by the end of the year. But with Inter Milan losing Hakimi and Lukaku, they've obviously got a little bit worse, even though I think they've replaced them very well in the form of Dzeko and Joaquin Correa, and Denzel Dumfries has started very well at right wing back as well. So I think we should see a really, really interesting top 4 race in Serie A, whereas I think in the Premier League, it's pretty much nails on who's going to finish in the top 4. I don't think anything from these early starts to the season has changed anything in terms of that. I mean, McCubs, in terms of competitiveness, people love to look at the sort of shock results, how often the big teams lose.
Yeah.
And what can we tell the fans about what happens in the various leagues?
Yeah, I mean, I'll get on to another point about competitiveness in a bit, but I mean, in the Premier League, actually, the big teams have been pretty solid in the last few years. At least if we're talking about kind of Man City and Liverpool, have been clearly the 2 best teams in the Premier League for the last few years. Man City have only lost 27 league games over the last 5 years. Liverpool have only lost 24. For context, Bayern have only lost 18, and they play less games a season. So really, Liverpool have been pretty much as imperious, at least in terms of being a really difficult team to beat, as a side like Bayern Munich, who we consider to be kind of far ahead at the top of kind of German football. Real Madrid have also lost 27, like Man City. Barcelona have only lost 21. PSG have lost 24. Juve 25. So the teams at the top of the table, kind of consistently in these leagues, have been have averaged similar kind of numbers in terms of how often they lose. It would suggest that the Bundesliga is the least competitive in some ways, but then before Inter won Serie A last term, Juve were constantly winning it, and okay, they probably had more consistent title challenges, especially when Sarri was at Napoli. But still, I think it's easy to kind of bash the Bundesliga just because Bayern win it every year. When for me anyway, I think Bayern Munich, if you go season on season over the last 10 years in terms of their kind of consistency, probably have been the best team in Europe over the last 10 years on average. So I think Bayern Munich are amazing, and that does take away from the competitiveness in a certain extent. But I don't think I don't think we should knock the quality of the teams that are chasing. Like, I think that there's still an awful lot of quality in that kind of second place to like 7th, 8th place in the Bundesliga, which I don't think is spread as evenly in say a league like the Premier League or La Liga. But also on the competitiveness thing, I think English football fans in particular like to be like, like a different team wins it every year, even if that team is basically kind of Man City or Liverpool or whatever, or Chelsea. And I know it took, I know Man City the only team to have won it twice in a row in the last kind of 10 years or whatever. But it's actually very rare that there's a decent title race in the Premier League. I feel like pretty much every year, whoever wins it has won it by like January. Whereas like if you look at La Liga, okay, it's always the same 3 teams, but those same 3 teams were still all in it until like 3 weeks to go last season. It only took kind of Barcelona majorly messing up in May for it to suddenly become a 2-horse race. So I think we have to kind of look at it in that respect as well, and it's obviously difficult to remember every single title race from all top 5 leagues. But I think in that sense, Serie A was quite good a few years ago, wasn't it? I'm trying to think, like, the Bundesliga not so much, but yeah, perhaps maybe Spain has been that league in terms of actually having 2 or 3 teams going for the title until quite late in the season. So in that sense, maybe Spain, maybe doesn't win it on competitiveness, but that's certainly something that should be considered.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be quite a competitive league this year as well. We've seen Real Madrid go out the blocks and absolutely fly out the blocks, really, in an attacking sense in particular. I was watching their highlights against Mallorca yesterday, and they were really, really good going forward, to be honest. It was great to see Asensio regain some form, and Atletico Madrid are just sort of stumbling at the start of this season, but most people expect them to win the title. They've got the best squad, probably the most evenly distributed squad in terms of talent throughout the whole team. But it's a challenge for them. They're now they're hunted, and they're under pressure to improve in Europe as well, where they haven't done particularly well in the last few years. So we'll see what happens there. So that's our general discussion on competitiveness. What we basically have said that every league's got its own sort of pros and cons, but I think that we're probably saying the Bundesliga in terms of title race is obviously the least competitive, probably followed by Liga. Serie A and La Liga, there's a lot, and Premier League, there's a fair amount of competitiveness at the top. But I think the most competitive league at the moment is definitely Serie A in terms of who could win it. Right, let's move on to quality. Now, obviously, quality is completely subjective. It's in the eye of the beholder, but a solid way of comparing overall team quality is how well they do in European competition. You know, the Champions League, Europa League, the Conference League coming up potentially. But although there are a lot of variables in how well you do in the Champions League as well. For example, last year, you know, Bayern missing Robert Lewandowski for their games against PSG. I think that made an enormous difference. You know, it's luck of the draw as well, avoiding injuries, massive factors. Henry, in terms of the Champions League winners in the last 10 years, you know, it seems like there's a slight shifting of the guard from Spain to England, maybe. Is that sort of fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be fair to Spain and England, they both completely dominated this competition. The last 10 winners of the UCL have 5 from Spain, 3 from England, that's Chelsea getting 2, and Liverpool, and obviously 2 from Germany, Bayern Munich, who the constant presence, I'd say, from outside of sort of Spain and England when it comes to the big competition. I mean, there hasn't been an Italian winner since 2010, and only 3 this century. Juve made the final, obviously, in 2015 and 2017, but they haven't progressed past the quarterfinals in the last 4 attempts. I really thought they'd maybe have pinched one of those finals, to be honest. But yeah, last season, no Italian team made it past the last 16. And only one team made it into the quarters in 2019-20. Atalanta, the same in 2018-19 with Juventus. And even in like the same time frame, this is where it gets a bit damning. Lyon and PSG have made the semi-finals. PSG obviously going all the way to the final. Leipzig and Bayern have both made the semi-finals. Bayern winning it. Barca and Real Madrid have been to that stage as well. And then over in England, you've got Chelsea, City, Spurs, Liverpool. They've all made the final in the past 3 seasons. So that's pretty damning on Serie A when you look at it that way. I just want to see even in the Europa League as well. That's been the competition dominated by Spain once again. 7 of the last 10 winners have been from Spain, with Sevilla winning 4, Atleti 2, and then Villarreal obviously popping up with that victory last year. The other 3 winners in that time have been English. You got Chelsea, United, Chelsea again. But I mean, these are the teams that tend to drop in from the Champions League route. And only 2 German sides have even made the final. Dortmund in 2002, this century that is, and Werder Bremen in 2009. Portugal have had 3 finalists since 2011, which kind of tells all. France won, Ukraine won, Netherlands won, and Italy won. That was last season when Inter got to, in 2020, apologies, when Inter got to the final. We can get over the line. So Germany, by the way, I should mention, has been the real struggler. I was just looking at their European records. I think Werder Bremen were the last ones to be in the Europa League final way back in 2009. So they really struggled to push on, which kind of surprises me when you consider their league is a bit smaller and they maybe could have a better go at it. Teams like Bayer Leverkusen, you expect to see them go deeper in these competitions. Obviously, it's not easy when some of the bigger Champions League sides do drop down into the process. But yeah, I mean, for me, like this has a massive weight for me on La Liga. I think this is really important. They have been unbelievably competitive on the European stage, and I think we'll probably go into it a little bit. That maybe they're due, because I know you've been suggesting that like La Liga's overall quality is slipping as a spectacle. But I don't think you can write off the fact that they've probably got some of the best managers in the division. They've clearly got some of the best sort of competition strategy when it comes to approaching the Europa League. Obviously, not every division or team takes it seriously, but for me, like, La Liga deserves a huge amount of credit for its longevity within these European competitions and how well they've performed.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. I mean, the thing about the German stat about the Europa League, I think it's quite interesting. It just, for me, it shows that their top teams are good enough to get through to the last 16 of the Champions League every year. So there's not a Dortmund or a Leipzig, dropping into the Europa League in the last few years. And if they did, you'd probably expect them to go quite deep. But then maybe it shows the talent from 4th to, sort of 6th in that in the Bundesliga, isn't quite good enough to compete with the teams that drop down from the Champions League or the best teams that qualify for the Europa League and other leagues. So maybe that's a reflection on where the Bundesliga is. I think your point about La Liga and how it shouldn't just be written off on the basis of what it's done over the last 10 years is really valid, to be honest. I think they had a phenomenal run. Maybe there's been a slight shift recently in terms of managerial talent and player quality, going to the Premier League. Maybe they don't see La Liga and Barcelona and Real Madrid as that final luxurious destination as they once did, in that Ronaldo and Messi era. But I think this is just cyclical. Like, La Liga is not going to go away. The benefits of living in Spain, working in Spain, in that climate, for these enormous clubs, like historically probably the biggest clubs in Europe, to be honest, it's not going to go away in any time soon, I should say. But Cubs, one league we haven't really mentioned in terms of quality is Liga, and it feels like in terms of young talent coming through, it's no longer that phrase that I hate, Farmers League, that people used to band around about 10 years ago. In terms of young talent coming through, Liga has been phenomenal, and we've seen that reflected in the French national team's performances.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously the France national team has, 2 or 3 incredible sides at its disposal, doesn't it? And when you look at the kind of talent that, especially has been, taken from France, by Premier League clubs, for example, over the last few years, it's pretty astounding, to be honest. I mean, I know N'Golo Conte is kind of the outstanding example, and he came from Ligue 2, didn't he? Look at a player like Aurélien Tchouameni at the moment, who last term was superb for Monaco. I feel like he's going to be one of the next players to leave, and I guess that kind of takes away from the quality in France, just because they kind of monetarily they can't compete with the big clubs in Spain or in England. So I think it is worth giving some credit to France, because I don't think Ligue 1 sees necessarily the fruits of its labour in terms of the work that's done in academies, the work that's done by coaches, and just the quality that is coming from French cities. It is amazing. A city like Paris has produced some of multiple world-class players in the last 10 years, and it doesn't look like stopping either. If you look at kind of the players who have left the PSG academy, especially going to Germany, Moussa Diaby in particular, the last few weeks has been a real standout star in the Bundesliga, and he's been very impressive for Bayer Leverkusen over the last couple of years in general. And also it's quite an entertaining league to watch as well. I think there's been more high-scoring teams in Liga and so far than in any other league. We've seen Marseille under Georges Sampaoli. They look really exciting, don't they? They've been very entertaining so far this term, and have done some really interesting business as well. We saw Lille take the title off PSG last year, really under an incredible manager in Christophe Galtier as well. So I think I think it's easy to downplay the quality that is in Ligue 1, but I think in terms of producing talent and in terms of kind of experimentation, I think it's right up there.
Yeah, I think it's definitely got to be. The league's excitement in terms of quality, I think, is quite an interesting point. Now, obviously, different leagues have played different amounts of games, but of the 17 sides to have scored over 10 league goals this season, only 1 is from Spain, 5 are from France, 5 are from England, 3 are from Germany, and 3 are from Italy. And I don't know about you guys, up until last night when there was a lot of goals in Spain, most La Liga matches and most La Liga highlights that I've caught, it feels like the league is struggling as a whole, not just Real Madrid and Barcelona, the whole league. Quite turgid football, not enough excitement, not enough players getting enough shots on target. Just the general quality seems to have dropped. Now there could be a number of reasons for that. Maybe teams are just getting up to speed. Quite a few teams lower down the division have changed manager. They're trying to get used to a new philosophy. Maybe it's a slight sort of hangover from the summer in which a number of top players left that league. I mean, only one team in Spain, Real Madrid, is averaging over 2.5 points per game. There's 3 from Italy, 3 from England, 2 from Germany, and 2 from France. And in terms of XG difference, the best teams in Europe right now are Bayern, followed by Man City and Liverpool, then PSG and Napoli, which is quite interesting. And Sevilla are the top-ranked team in that metric. So in terms of XG difference, so the difference between their expected goals and expected goals against, Sevilla are the top-ranked team, and they're 14th in Europe. So I think that just goes to show that the general quality in La Liga right now, I feel, is quite low, personally, although Real Madrid, in terms of attacking talent, in terms of their performance last night and the last few games as well. Well, actually, last few games, it's mainly required late winners, but last night they were excellent. But in terms of goals per game, to back that up as well, Serie A's top with 3.9, then Bundesliga with 3.1, Liga with 2.9, then the Premier League with 2.6, and prior to last night, it's now changed, but La Liga's was just 2.1. So I feel in terms of quality, La Liga's struggling right now. But, guys, let me know what you guys think about that in the comments down below. Henry, let's move on to managerial talent, because it feels like there's only one place which is the top right now, and it's got to be the Premier League.
Yeah, absolutely. Tuchel, Klopp, Guardiola, Rodgers, Bielsa, Potter. Big names. Big names all in there. I completely agree with you. I'd actually be really intrigued to hear you guys rank your managerial talents. I was just looking at this, trying to get my head around where I'd put the remainder of the pack in there. I'd probably put almost La Liga last on this front. Ancelotti, I actually think is hugely underrated, perhaps underappreciated. Ronald Koeman, fascinating article on the BBC by Guillaume Balaguer about sort of the power balance between Koeman and Laporta at the moment.
And the finances involved in potentially sacking him as well.
Yeah, he paid his €6 million release clause from the Netherlands on the basis that, that is crazy. That is crazy. And if they sack him early, they have to pay it back. So yeah, Ronald Koeman, then obviously Diego Simeone. I don't think we can write off him. Probably the greatest defensive coach for the last, other than maybe Mourinho, for the last sort of 10, 20 years. I think Diego Simeone is a huge figure there. But the rest of the talent there, Unai Emery deserves a massive amount of credit too. And actually, Lopetegui is a very interesting manager. But I don't know, it's difficult. It's kind of similar with Serie A. It's hard to say. Like Simone Inzaghi, Spalletti, he's a bit of a journeyman, isn't he? He's obviously had a great kickoff at Napoli, but I'm not gonna put Spalletti up there with some of the other names that we've said. Allegri is really struggling at the moment. Pioli, Gasperini, Mourinho. I think the more interesting managers are perhaps coming a bit lower. So the emerging managers in Serie A, which is very interesting at the moment. Dionisi over at Sassuolo, Vincenzo Italiano. He's doing wonders at Fiorentina at the moment. So yeah, I think those guys are definitely one to watch as well. Obviously, Mourinho's knocking around in there too. Liga's quite interesting. I was originally thinking I'd put this bottom, but I think I would almost put this above La Liga in many ways. Pochettino, Christophe Galtier, who, if you really read into what he's achieved, certainly at Saint-Etienne, and now with Lille, and even sort of the early inroads he's made with Nice, Christophe Galtier is perhaps one of the more underappreciated managers of recent times. Sampaoli, I'm absolutely loving his wild sort of 1-3-3-3-1 football, whatever he is. He's playing over at Marseille at them. That teams to watch. Kovac is obviously having a hard time. Peter Bosch, love him or hate him, and then the Bundesliga as well. It's obviously developed a reputation not only for producing young talent but producing amazing managers. I think Nagelsmann is probably by far and large the best manager in that division. Rosa, Jesse Marsch, tough time. Adi Hütter as well. So yeah, for me it would probably go the Premier League. Then I'd go maybe for the Bundesliga, Serie A, La Liga. Serie A, Liga, then La Liga. That's kind of how I'd go. But I'm struggling. I don't know if I'm almost back.
I was just listening to that order and I was thinking, I was imagining in my head what I'd say next. I actually totally agree with you. Yeah, Premier League, then Bundesliga, Liga. No, Serie A, Liga, La Liga, I think. Yeah. I'd put La Liga as bottom. But I do really respect Unai Emery. As you say, Ancelotti, great managerial record. Diego Simeone, can't really fault him. The only thing with Serie A is I just don't think many of those top names have tested themselves outside of Italy. I think of the names you mentioned, only Spalletti has had a spell outside of Italy with Zenit St. Petersburg between 2009 and 2014. Obviously, Mourinho's had wonderful success with other clubs. But maybe a little insular, that group of talent. I mean, McCubbs, do you have any changes to that order?
Not massively, to be honest. I feel like this is something that we'll all agree on. Equally, I can't claim to know an awful lot about the managers in the bottom half of La Liga or whatever. So it's difficult to kind of think of the whole spread. But in terms of the top teams, I think Premier League clearly the best. I think this is where the Premier League really wins out. And also, I think when you've got the best managers, you see those results in the ensuing years, and it's like when Klopp and Guardiola went to the Premier League suddenly kind of became brilliant again. Or maybe not suddenly, but within 2 years it was brilliant again. Whereas I think it was really lagging behind La Liga for a number of years. And I feel like that's perhaps why the Bundesliga, I think, has been so consistent over the years as well, because they just do produce so many good managers, and they're that stepping stone as well, aren't they, to the best managers in Switzerland, the best managers in Austria. So yeah, I think the Bundesliga comes second. I think we have to appreciate the kind of the ability of that league to produce great managers, and also the tactical influence that league has had. Probably had more influence on the game over the last 10 years than any other league, in terms of kind of pressing football, in terms of like figures like Klopp and Tuchel and Rangnick and Nagelsmann, obviously. So yeah, I think they have to go second, and then I think it's a bit of a toss-up between the other three, to be honest. Liga, yeah, I can't really rank the other three. I think they're all at a very similar level.
Fair enough. Yeah, I do think the Bundesliga currently is dragged up by Nagelsmann. Like, if you put Nagelsmann in any of those other three leagues that we didn't mention, like if Nagelsmann was in La Liga, I don't think it would be bottom. It's just he seems like the outstanding coach, along with Pochettino, probably outside of the Premier League right now, in my opinion, with Antonio Conte not currently employed. Right, let's move on to the final category, which is player quality. Now, the last 12 winners of the Ballon d'Or have all come from La Liga. Not since Ronaldo in 2008 has anyone won the Ballon d'Or while not playing in La Liga. But obviously that helps that Messi has won 6 and Ronaldo has won 5 in that time, but they've both left. Now, we could do it on values by Transfermarkt. Of the 21 players in world football valued over 80 million euros by Transfermarkt, 11 are in England, 4 are in Spain, 3 are in France, 2 are in Germany, and 1 in Italy. But that's mainly because the Premier League has the most money, and that, therefore on Transfermarkt they value players that have just moved for a lot of money higher up. Of the 20 moves for more than £25 million this summer, 14 were done by English clubs. They spent £1.1 billion this summer. The next highest was Serie A on £475 million. There is a massive gulf in finances, which does affect the rest of the categories, to be honest. Managerial talent, competitiveness, everything is changed by money. And right now, the Premier League is completely flattening the rest, because we've got some incredibly wealthy owners in the clubs. Like, outside of, everyone always points to the oligarchs of Man City and Chelsea, but the Glazer family, incredibly wealthy. Spurs' owner, Joe Lewis, incredibly wealthy. Aston Villa is owned by two, I think, very wealthy Egyptian owners. So, like, there is money throughout that league like you wouldn't believe. And just this summer, we saw the results of that. The Premier League took the best player, or one of the best players from Serie A in Lukaku, one of the best players in the Bundesliga in Jadon Sancho, got Rafael Varane, one of the best centre-backs in the world from La Liga. Obviously, what happens with Haaland and Mbappe over the next summer will probably determine where the overall player quality is, or that will change. If they both go to La Liga, I think that's going to have an enormous knock-on effect in terms of, obviously, Real Madrid's fortunes, or wherever they end up, and how that shifts the balance of power once again. I was wondering what you guys think on this player quality. I mean, if we take Premier League as the highest right now, which I don't think many people would disagree with, who's second? Henry, who are you going for second?
I'd probably... God, this is actually so much harder.
This is the toughest one, I think.
Maybe the Bundesliga? I think so.
But it's difficult to get away from Bayern, isn't it?
Bayern, even Dortmund, I think, have got some really remarkable players.
Leipzig have got...
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, I'd probably put Bayern, the Bundesliga... Not Bayern. I'd probably put the Bundesliga second. I actually kind of agree. I think... I see your list written down here. I think Bundesliga, Serie A, La Liga, Liga... Although I think Ligue 1 is getting a lot better. I'm really enjoying the current sort of Lyon sides that are coming through, even Marseille, Nice as well. Amazing summer business, Calvin Stengs, etc. So I think they're massively improving. La Liga is probably the one that's languishing the most. Benzema really emerging as the champion of that division, isn't he? Sort of undisputed top scorer and assist maker in Europe at the moment after certain round of fixtures. But I think beyond that, some of the lesser sides, I look at kind of like a Valencia side, there's the odd star on here and there, but I struggle to see sort of consistent quality at times. So yeah, I'd probably go for the Bundesliga next, then Serie A, La Liga and Liga. That's probably my order.
That's your list. Fair enough. McCubs, do you have any changes to that? Do you believe the Premier League has to take top spot?
Yeah, I mean the Premier League's never been clearer, I don't think, than at this moment in time, and I think that has a huge amount to do with how the Premier League has been able to navigate the transfer market in such weird times. When you look at La Liga, it's like, clubs just haven't been allowed to spend. And I think in the long run that may well prove to be a positive. But ultimately, it means that they've had their hands tied behind their back in terms of being able to compete with other clubs around Europe. So I think La Liga has had the biggest drop off in that sense. Even last summer, like summer of 2020, they spent they had the biggest drop off, and then this summer, did they spend less than any other league? I'm not quite sure, but they were certainly down there, weren't they? So I think there has been a big drop off for them. I think Premier League, then Bundesliga, and again I think it's a bit of a toss up between the other three. I think like PSG, out of any team in La Liga, Serie A and Liga, and PSG have by far the best squad. And then next in line is kind of hard to think. I mean, Juventus still have a very good squad. I think Real Madrid's squad is still very good. Even Barcelona, do have two of the outstanding, teenage talents in Europe as well. So I don't think we should write off them completely. And I think also as well, Spain, I think has become maybe a little bit underrated as a talent. In terms as a talent producer in the last few years. Like in the early 2010s, they were like by far and away producing the best players in the world. I think in the last few years, as we saw with the Spain national team at the Euros as well, like they still do produce like a ton of great players, especially in the midfield area. So I think we probably do need to take that into account. There is still a lot of quality in the, kind of spread out across La Liga, even if it hasn't been that good to watch so far this season. So maybe like La Liga I don't know. It's really tough to choose the other three. I think Bundesliga and Premier League are clear on that. Like I really do. And the other three are really hard to choose between.
Okay. You've heard all our categories. You've heard all our criteria. It's now time to give the overall ranking. Now, I don't think this is English bias. For me personally, I'm putting the Premier League at the best as the best in the world right now for the whole package: player quality, managerial talent. Competitiveness is probably its weakest point, to be totally honest, but I'm putting Premier League first. I'm actually putting Serie A second. Now, partly, not because I think they've got the best teams that will do the best in Europe, but it's the league I'm most looking forward to watching every week when I'm catching up with highlights or watching games. I think the top 7 in that league, there's loads of goals flying in that league at the moment. The top 7 are of a pretty similar standard. I think it's going to be a real slugfest throughout the whole year. So I think Serie A number 2. The Bundesliga for me is number 3. They've got an outstanding team, for me the best team in Europe in Bayern Munich. I think some of the players that they've got throughout the league, some of the ethos as well, the stadiums. It's a really fun league to watch, the Bundesliga. It never really disappoints. So I'm going Bundesliga 3. Right now I'm going La Liga as 4, but it's not that far ahead of Liga for me. Not because that top 4 in Spain would comfortably finish in the top 4 or top 5 in France, I think. I think they're all better pretty much than Monaco, Marseille, Nice, etc. But in terms of the overall standard of play at the start of this year, I think it's really tight, to be honest. I think Liga is producing some fantastic players, is producing some fantastic managers. It's having a real tough time off the pitch in terms of its hooliganism, which does need to be addressed. But yeah, I'm putting Liga as number 5, narrowly behind La Liga, for me personally. Henry, do you have any changes to that?
Well, I did when we started. I don't know if I do anymore. I was going to maybe switch Bundesliga and La Liga. I was maybe going to put La Liga third. I just think their success in European competition over the last 10 years can't be discredited. Even Villarreal beating United in the final last season. I think Ligan's probably a bit further off. As much as PSG are a great side, they are an anomaly in that league. Some, Clermont, Metz, Brest, Troyes. These I think the lower teams of French football would lose to all the other lower teams quite comfortably, perhaps in the other divisions at the moment.
Fair.
But I'm going to put La Liga above the Bundesliga, but I not for any sort of by any massive margin. But I completely agree with you. The Bundesliga has been such a sort of incredible league. The ethos of it, the whole 50+1 system of club ownership, the fan support, it's probably the best. It's not a category, but if there was, I recently did our top 10 most passionate fans. I think if all-round fan passion was taken into account, I think Germany probably comes out trumps in terms of how good their support base really is when it comes to loyalty to the local clubs. So yeah, I'd probably respect Bundesliga for that, but for all-round sort of historic quality, I'm going to go for La Liga above the Bundesliga.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it's tight. We all love European football. It's incredibly tight. McCubs, do you agree? I think probably the most controversial call in this is Serie A being second in both of mine and Henry's list. Do you agree with that?
No. I think I'll go Premier League. I think I'll go Premier League, Bundesliga. I was thinking I was struggling to go to who was to go third, Serie A or La Liga. But I think it has to go. I think I have to go La Liga third, just because they've produced so many great teams. Then I think Serie A fourth, partly because I don't think Serie A have produced as many outstanding sides as any of those three leagues above them in the last 10 years. And then Liga in fifth.
Yeah, wow. Fair enough. I mean, it does make sense when you put it like that. I don't know, it's really tight. We all love European football. We all love all the leagues, to be honest. Guys, we want your thoughts on this debate. Where would you rank them? Get your 1 to 5 in the comments down below. Explain your reasoning, and the most coherent answer will feature on Sunday Vibes, of course. So get your thoughts in the comments down below. That was a big debate. Let's go on to our big match preview. So there are loads of big games this weekend. Get a load of this. So it's Gladbach versus Dortmund in Germany. Tough start for Gladbach under Adi Hütter, actually. He needs to pick it up. Marseille versus Lens, who have been a bit of a surprise package in Liga so far this year. Real Madrid versus Villarreal, hoping to continue that momentum from that Mallorca thrashing. But we think the biggest games are taking place in Italy this weekend. There's obviously the Rome derby, Roma versus Lazio, and Inter Milan versus Atalanta. But having done that preview, or that preview of their season with Carlo Garganese last week on Continental Club, thank you very much again, Carlo, for coming onto the show to talk about Roma. Instead, we wanted to talk about Inter Milan versus Atalanta. Henry, Inter Milan, it's gone surprisingly well. I thought we thought it was going to go okay, but a lot of people didn't.
I'm loving Inter Milan at the moment. I really like Simone Inzaghi. He's made a superb start to his managerial career. As we touch upon what you said there, obviously they did sell a massive amount of talent, but they reinvested that quite sensibly under a budget. Edin Dzeko, perhaps another hugely appreciated striker, one of the only forwards to score 50 in 3 of the top 5 leagues in Europe, still going strong, finding the back of the net. Denzel Dumfries, a lot of the comments you see on all the highlights packages on YouTube say if Dumfries can maintain his early kind of momentum, then what's the worry about? And then I think I've said it a few times, Federico Di Marco at left back, he's been brilliant since he's come in. Looks like Perisic is going to struggle to break into the squad there, and they're playing above everything. They're playing electric football, aren't they? If we look at their first 5 games, won 4, drawn 1, scored 18. That's 7 more than next best Roma and Lazio, and they've only conceded 5 as well. That's the 6th best record too. As I said, they're back 3 at centre half, almost in the top 5 in Europe by comfortable margin. The only thing I will say, they've had a fairly easy run so far. All mid-table sides of last season: Genoa, Hellas Verona, Sampdoria, Bologna and Fiorentina. And this is their first real domestic test, isn't it? That said, the game against Fiorentina was pretty difficult the weekend. They're flying high under Italiano. They were 1-0 down until the 52nd minute and scored 2 quick goals. Nico Gonzalez got sent off and they added a third. So although XG had it at 2.7 to 1.7 in their favour, La Viola looked very much on top in that game. Really looking forward to watching them throughout the rest of the seasons. Obviously, we had Jack Collins on to talk about how to give us an essence of what Fiorentina means. They're doing very well at the moment. But if we look at Inter Milan's other big game of the season they had, that was against Real Madrid in the Champions League, and they were so unlucky to lose that 1-0 at home. They had 18 shots with 5 on target. So Los Blancos' 12 with just 2 on target. They obviously pinched the victory. They're 6th for shots a game, 6th for shots against. The best side according to expected points, narrowly ahead of AC Milan, who I really think it's between those two and Napoli for the title this season. Napoli also made a brilliant start, haven't they? We probably haven't talked about them enough at the moment. But yeah, Edin Dzeko, 4 goals, 1 assist. Lautaro has 3 goals in 3 games too. Barella already has 4 assists to his name. Çalhanoğlu looks to have settled right in. He's already into double figures for chances created. And then, yeah, Brozovic, De Vrij, Skriniar, Bastoni, what a defensive unit they really are. They've got a big Champions League tie come up against Shakhtar on Tuesday. I really expect them to walk away from that with 3 points. But yeah, I was never too doom and gloom about Inter Milan going into the season, and they're proving it. I think the most important thing is they got a brilliant manager through the door, and he's managed to stabilise the ship. And as we've seen across Europe, when you make a good managerial appointment, like, the rest of the team sort of falls into place, because they've still got an unbelievable amount of quality who are proving it this season.
Yeah, definitely. And it helps that he sort of is wedded to a similar formation as Conte as well. And yeah, it's been pretty seamless so far. I did think Fiorentina caused them a hell of a lot of problems on, was it Tuesday night? Yeah, Tuesday night. And it was a kind of ugly victory, but the kind of win you need to do if you're going to back up a title. And Fiorentina, yeah, just massive credit for them to, after a really difficult few years. Nico Gonzalez has arrived, Nastasic as well, Odriozola they've got on loan. So, for that on a shoestring is really pretty impressive. And Vincenzo Italiano, they might have an outside shot at Europa League football on the basis of that. Really high pressing, really high intensity. I was really impressed by Fiorentina. But yeah, roll on Inter. But my Cubs, up this weekend, they're coming up against a side in Atalanta who, like Inter Milan this season, are used to high-scoring affairs, but they haven't really clicked going forward this year so far.
No, well, at least not to the extent that we've seen in seasons past. Yeah. Obviously, far and away the top scorers last term in Serie A. The season before, I think, pretty much set a new record, or at least in the kind of, I think they scored more goals than any team had since, the 50s or whatever in 2019-20. So obviously we come to expect them, winning games or at least, being involved in very high scoring games and scoring 4 or 5 on a regular basis. But yeah, no, it hasn't been the case so far this term. Even according to kind of XG, they've only really been edging the games that they've won. But nevertheless, they've still won 3 of their 5 games, drawn 1 and lost the other. They've only scored 6 goals, but also their defence, which has been improving over the last year, and we thought we'd maybe see a drop off after Cristiano Romero left, but they've still only conceded 4 in those games as well. So they've made a solid start to the season. I think last year their form was more erratic at the start of the campaign, and they ended up bringing it back in the second half of the season really, really well. So I definitely don't think it's these are worrying times for Atalanta at all. I think they're easily one of the most consistent sides in the division. So yeah, for context, last season they'd scored 15 after 5 games, but they'd also conceded 12. So perhaps we're seeing Atalanta go into a slightly more conservative approach, seeing Gasperini maybe not be as adventurous, and they've not had they've not had all their key players fit in these early weeks as well. So I think maybe that has something to do with it. They are also integrating a lot of new players as well. So yeah, I think that all these factors need to be considered. They're still 4th in Serie A. They're only 3 points behind Inter. Obviously, they had a fairly disappointing result in their opening UCL game against Villarreal. Obviously, they took a 1-0 lead and then ended up drawing 2-2. So, by all accounts, a fairly tough group. They'll be up against Man United next week in what's a crucial game for both sides. So yeah, I think kind of slow and steady, but fairly solid start to the season for them. I think they're ranked 10th for shots in the division, which is pretty astounding. But they're still averaging 13.2 shots a game. I think we'll see that rise. It's far from disastrous, and they rank 5th for shots against a game as well. So yeah, I think they could probably go into this game against Inter, maybe slight underdogs, but I really wouldn't write them off at all. But yeah, they haven't seen much of their new signings so far, except for Juan Musso in goal. Koop Miners has only been given 1 start, although I thought he was really good midweek, involved in the winner. Zappacosta's played 2 as well. Demiral's started 3 games so far and has looked pretty decent. So yeah, I think they'll only get better as these new signings come into play. Robin Gersons has started really bright. He's been their main goal threat. He's had 12 shots already, which is the most in the side. Malinovsky's also been really good. He's created the most chances. So So yeah, once Luis Muriel is fully fit again, we see him kind of scoring at even half the rate that he was last season. I think we will see the goals start to flow again in Bergamo. But yeah, it's a I don't know, tough one to call this, but I think I think it will be a really tight game.
I think it will as well. And where there's a Gosens, there's a hope for Atalanta. What a phenomenal player. He's just been so good for a number of years. I was actually surprised no one went for him this summer, but I don't know what his contract situation is, to be fair. In terms of injuries for this game, Inter Milan, obviously Eriksen remains out. Sensi is out with that medial injury, that knee injury. Poor guy. It's really been difficult for him after a promising first year, was it at Inter? Correa has a bruised hip, and 34-year-old Vidal also has thigh problems. Story of his life over the last few years. Atalanta, Hateboer is out, so Zappacosta might continue at right back, and Luis Muriel is out with a thigh problem as well. He won't be back until the middle of next month, so that might explain why some of their attacking metrics aren't as promising as usual, because Muriel's a 5 to 6 shot guy. Inter haven't lost any of their last 5 meetings against Atalanta, stretching back to November 2018, with 2 wins in that time. And in fact, that was their only defeat in their last 9 games against Ladeas. So form would suggest that Inter are heavy favourites here. Now, Henry, it's time for the score predictions. I think you actually might have beaten Carlo last week. So can you continue that form?
Yeah, I got one of them was spot on, which maybe gave me the edge overall. So yeah, well done me. I'm going to go for 2-1 to Inter Milan.
2-1 to Inter.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I got it was in AC Milan. I got Juventus. I got 1-1 correct last week. But yeah, I'm going to go for Inter Milan 2-1. I just think their defence is going to have too much for Atalanta's attack. But Cubs, I also just wanted. As well, could you do a prediction for Manchester United Atalanta as well? I'm just quite intrigued to see where you go.
I think Man United Atalanta will be an absolute chaos. I really do. I think that's going to be very high scoring. I think I'll say United 3-2 Atalanta.
Love it.
Next week.
There's a slightly Leeds United-esque quality to Atalanta. Do you know what I mean? When they, less so this season, but I think their centre-back quality isn't that high. Not a massive fan of Jim City or Toloi. I mean, Demiral's obviously a bit of an improvement, but I hope it's one of those Leeds United, Man United thrillers.
They play a high line as well, don't they? Which suits United. As for this game, I think I might go for a 2-2 draw.
Yeah. Love it. I'm going to go. I don't really know where to go with this one, so I'll just go 1-1. Yeah, don't feel particularly excited by the prospect of. No, I am excited by the prospect of this game. I don't know. I just don't feel it's going to be high scoring. Just my own personal opinion. Right, guys, we're going to roll straight into quickfire questions. McCubbs doesn't have long on his phone before the recording shuts down, so we're going to do Menez 18's question. He says, "Do you think Juventus should sack Allegri? And what are your updated top 4 predictions?" Henry, it's not been brilliant for Allegri. Obviously, got that winning. Finally got that win last night. But is this too premature?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of our quickfire questions this week. You're an expert. Are you worried about Pochettino? Aiden 1874. If Barcelona get rid of Koeman, who should replace him? We've only played about 6 games.
They're already they're thriving off the FD negativity.
Pochettino should not be sacked. He made the right call over Messi. They won the game. Yeah. Koeman, he's had to put up with so much crap at Barcelona. Who are they going to bring in? Gallardo? I mean, he's not going to transform their hopes right now. Juventus, Allegri. Potentially. Juventus, should they sack Allegri? No. They've played like a few games. Give the guy a chance. They've lost their best player in Cristiano Ronaldo. He's obviously trying to get to grips with it. As we've said, Serie A is looking unbelievably competitive at the moment. I'm telling you, all the other teams have got the bit between their teeth at the moment because they realise they've got an opportunity to go deep into this competition, to win Serie A, to end years of sort of hope and waiting. They all know that Juventus are at a weak point, so I think a lot of the teams have genuinely just stepped up at the moment. Obviously, it's tough for Allegri. He's had a tough start. But really, just going and sacking manager after manager is not the solution for them. That's an endemic problem more within the back room of the team. And Yeli, I despise the man, quite frankly. But their transfer policy has been so rubbish over the last few years. They've got a giant misbalanced squad. Morata, for me, is not sort of a title-winning leading man. They should absolutely not sack Allegri. He deserves a huge amount of credit for what he did with them the first time. And if they go and sack him after 6 games, that is an embarrassing indictment on where Juventus are as a club right now.
Love it. That was brilliant. That was Henry Hill at his angry best. Okay, McCubs, for the second part of the question, what are your updated top 4 predictions in Serie A?
I mean, I don't think Allegri should be sacked, but Juve do still have the best squad in the division for me. So I don't think, if the form carries on for like another month, I don't think there are really that many excuses, if I'm honest. Like, he still has like Dybala, Chiesa, Moise Kean, Kulusevski to choose up top. The midfield, is a little bit mismatched, but still, they got Locatelli in the summer. One of the top 3 midfielders in Serie A. So like, there is pressure on him, like for sure. There is big pressure on him, and already 8 points behind. Like, this is not where we expected them to be after 5 games. Top 4 predictions. I still think Juve will make it in there. I think it will be Juve, Milan, Inter, and it's tough. It's really tough for Serie A to choose. We've been talking about the competitiveness all day. I think Atalanta will still be in there as well. So maybe Milan will drop out and Napoli will be in there. But yeah, I can't really choose like who's going to be first, second, third, and fourth. It's just too early in the season. But yeah, it'll be those 5 in the top 5 for sure. Yeah,
I think I'm going to go Inter, Napoli, AC Milan, and then Roma. I think Roma might get a fourth.
I don't know. They are pretty dodgy. Like, I love Roma, but they are kind of, for every good thing they do something pretty awful.
We're all succumbing to that early Mourinho hype. Oh, maybe he's going to do all right this time.
I mean,
give it 6 months.
I mean, yeah, give it 6 months for sure. But also at the same time, like, it's a dogfight between a lot of teams for sort of 3rd to 7th down there. You could go for anything. Yeah. I don't think it's crazy to say Roma could finish 4th. Looking at the strength of the other teams.
I completely agree with you. I, for the record, I don't think Juventus are making top 4 this season. I think there's the 3rd week in a row.
Apparently, according to my predictions. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I almost agree with your top 4 exactly. AC Milan, Inter Milan, and Napoli. I think those are the top 3, and it's going to be a dogfight for that 4th spot. I still think Atalanta will probably pull through.
Yeah, I also think Lazio have a really good first 11, but the depth just isn't there. Anyway, guys, that is our roundup of Europe's top 5 leagues. We've broken down Serie A. We've talked about Allegri. We've talked about pretty much everything in European football. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the show. Let us know what your top 5 leagues are in the comments down below. Whether you'd sack Allegri, get all your thoughts down there. Please get that comment section on absolute fire this Friday. Henry, what should they go and watch now?
Oh, goodness. We've got a top 10 signings that ruined a wonder kid. Go check it out. Have a listen to the podcast this week. Always good fun. Yeah, keep supporting the channel.
Perfect. That was a pretty succinct roundup. McCubs, anything else in there?
We've got... I'm not sure. Just go and watch our explains. We did one about Chelsea on the weekend. We also did one about Heung-min Son. Go and show that some love. Yeah, that's what I've got.
Nice. I think tomorrow there's an FD explained on why Mo Salah is the greatest Premier League winger ever, which is dropping on Football Daily, written by myself. So could be a little controversial. Let's see. Anyway, guys, have a great weekend. We'll catch you next week. Look after yourselves. Bye.